Da, 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 da. So, guys, Premier League football returns this weekend on Sunday, the 15th of December 2024. It's the 2024 Manchester derby between Manchester City and Manchester United. It's the first Manchester derby for Ruben Amorim. It's blue versus red. It's the Etihad versus Old Trafford. It's Guardiola versus Ruben Amorim. It's Manchester City versus Manchester United on match day 15 of the 24-25 Premier League season. For me, this is the most open Manchester derby in years. The disappointment from Manchester City and with Manchester United slowly but surely seeming to be on the up. Are Manchester City finally on the edge of devastation under Pep Guardiola, with their form this season being an absolute shocker? I've never seen Manchester City be this bad in all my life under Pep Guardiola. And based on their form from their last 10 games, where they've conceded 21 goals in their last 10 matches, Pep Guardiola is under huge pressure as Manchester City's manager, with rumours of being true that Pep Guardiola is also worn out but has signed a 2-year contract extension with Manchester City. If Manchester City fail to another miserable defeat this weekend, is Pep Guardiola still the right manager for Manchester City to be led by him? Or is it time that Manchester City were figured out, punished, and Pep Guardiola walks away from Manchester City completely, and Man City go in a completely different direction under a completely different new manager? I don't know what's going on at Manchester City, but Man City have not been the team that I thought everyone expected them to be. Honestly, you're looking at it, when they won the treble, they deserved to win it. They were the best team in the land. They were the best team in Europe. They were absolutely smacking everybody. No one stood a chance. Man City got hold of Erling Haaland. You basically knew Man City were going to go up on another level. But this season, something seems weird. Something seems a little bit sus. And for me, something doesn't feel right. It feels a very suspicious season for Manchester City. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going wrong at Manchester City, and I don't understand why they are playing the way they are at the moment. And I don't know why they are conceding so many goals in so many matches under Pep. But something hasn't been right for a long time at Manchester City. And with the rumours, which are true, that Manchester City's charges have gone up from 115 charges to 130, are Man City on the brink? Are Man City in bad trouble? And have Man City been punished off the pitch without a real reason being given yet? And this is why Man City all of a sudden have now started to perform the way they have been, because no one expected this to be a bad season for them. Honestly, I'm looking at this Premier League and I'm looking at the domination that Manchester City have been in the last few seasons. In my view, I honestly expected Manchester City to walk this league this season. You look at the teams that come up and you look at the teams that Manchester City are coming up against, and you look at the brand new era at Liverpool under Arne Slot, you look at the brand new era under Chelsea under Maresca, you look at Manchester United that were under Erik ten Hag that are now under Ruben Amorim, you look at the demise of Tottenham under Postecoglou this season without Harry Kane, and you also have to look at everybody else around them. No one else can compete with Manchester City on the pitch, off the pitch. No one can compete with Manchester City. But this season, their form is an absolute shocker. I don't know why they're playing this badly. I can't write it. I don't understand it. I don't know why Man City are this bad. No one expected Manchester City to fold this badly so early on. We're only on match day 15 of this Premier League season. Manchester City are in turmoil. Their crisis that was meant to be a blip, and they got back to winning ways in their last league game at home to Nottingham Forest when they won 3-0 at the Etihad. Manchester United played Nottingham Forest last weekend at Old Trafford and lost 3-2 at home. Was that because the quality of Man City on the day was too big and too dominant for Nottingham Forest to cope with? Or were Manchester United just too naive and too cocky to think that they were going to do exactly what Manchester City did to Forest at the Etihad. I don't understand why Man City are bad. I don't get it. But clearly, there is big underlying issues under Pep Guardiola this season at Manchester City. And I remember when he was Bayern Munich's manager. I don't know how many years he was in charge for. Was it 3 years or 4 years? And in the third to the fourth year, it all started going wrong at Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich's defence of the Bundesliga went up in smoke. Bayern Munich were no longer that dominant in German football. And Bayern Munich were going 10 times backwards in season 3 and 4 under Pep. And then Bayern Munich decided we need a new direction. We need a new manager. And Pep Guardiola, quite frankly, deserved to go because Bayern Munich were on the decline. Even though Bayern Munich were the best team in Germany, they were getting found out by everyone they were coming up against. And Bayern Munich's dominance of the Bundesliga title ended up in tatters, and fingers were pointed at Pep because this type of form that Manchester City are showing was happening at Bayern Munich, and it was happening every fucking game. And Paul Tanner says in the chat, we are smashing City, mate. City are shite. They are 22nd in the Champions League. But it wouldn't be surprising, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. Take this with a pinch of salt. It wouldn't surprise me, knowing how big this Manchester derby is and how open it actually is in so many seasons. This could be goals galore. This could end up as a 3-3. This could end up as a convincing Manchester City win again. This could be an unlikely 3 points for Manchester United to go to the Etihad and actually show up Man City for the cheating scandals that they have proved that they are cheats. But put that to one side, Manchester City's form at the moment, they've only won one game in their last 10. That was against Nottingham Forest at home. And that was at the Etihad last weekend. Man United gets shown up at Old Trafford by Forest at home in the league a week later. And I don't know if Man City's quality was too good for Forest on the day. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But Forest still had a go. Forest still went at them. Forest did create many big opportunities against Man City, and they didn't take them. And I think where you look at Man United, the lack of consistency is still quite worrying. We are still leaking a shitload of goals, and the goals we're conceding from a defensive point of view are very shocking. You look at Man City, did Nottingham Forest go there knowing Man City would finally turn up to the party? Or did they realise we've got bigger fish to fry here? Manchester City, we're not really trying to compete with them. We are trying to compete maybe mid-table football, which Manchester United, realistic at the moment, it looks like it's going to be a mid-table finish for the Red Devils at this current moment in time. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but maybe Forest's mentality and feelings and emotions were a bit too overwhelmed by the quality that Man City were being able to deliver. Because if you look at Man City against Juventus, Juventus played them off the park. Juventus absolutely damaged Man City's chances of getting into the knockout automatically for the next round of Champions League football for this season. Man City are in deep trouble of going out of Europe altogether. Manchester United are having a better European season than Manchester City. You've got to say it. We're on more points in them. We're sitting quite comfortably so far in the automatic qualifications for the knockout rounds. Man City are on the verge of elimination from European football for the rest of the season. And a lot, I think, in my view, why it's going wrong at Man City. And to pinpoint it, when they brought Gundogan back, I think everyone was expecting Gundogan to produce the form that he showed for City in the many seasons that he had with them. He was going to be able to produce that type of quality straight away when he came back to Manchester City on a free transfer from Barcelona, because he left Man City for Barcelona and Barcelona let him go for free back to Manchester City. And I think they expected Gundogan to absolutely transform their midfield issues, because the big problem at Man City, and I was having a chat with someone who's also a Man City fan. I was in Food Wells the other week, a few weeks ago, and I got served by a person at the till, and she said, "I don't know what's going on at Man City. I don't understand why Pep is still there. I don't understand what's going wrong." And my comeback to that was, Man City have been missing that key individual player who is out for the rest of the season. And he's your Ballon d'Or winner. It's Rodri. He is your best player in that midfield, in that CDM role. And since he's been out and since he's been injured, Man City's form has gone up in smoke. Man City's midfield looks at absolutely sixes and sevens. And when you've got no Rodri, and to plus that problem, you've also got no Kovacic. And I'm not saying Kovacic is a bad player. Pep Guardiola obviously knew what he was going to do with Kovacic when he brought him in from Chelsea. I don't think really anyone expected Man City to go for a Chelsea backup midfielder who was kind of mostly in and out of that Chelsea team. Kovacic wasn't exactly getting a lot of first team football at Chelsea. He was very in and out that team in their midfield. And when Man City lost him to injury, and I'm not saying Kovacic is a better player than Rodri, but when you've got both Rodri and Kovacic both out injured, you look at Man City's midfield and you have to start asking questions. Where is that quality? And also, you've got to plus that in another addition. Look at the start of the season when Kevin De Bruyne kept picking up injury after injury after injury. You lose De Bruyne, Rodri and Kovacic. You look at the rest of Man City's midfield and it's worrying. From a Man City point of view, your quality has gone. Your skillful players, your better players that have basically won you the Champions League, 4 league titles in a row, an FA Cup, a Champions League. You look at the quality when they had all those players fit. You look at the quality every week. Everyone that came up against them was getting smoked, was getting annihilated. No one could compete when Man City had their full quota of players available with all their best starters were playing week in, week out for Man City. Man City were dominating. No one could beat them. But I think the injuries that have cost Man City is mostly down to their midfield issue. And the only midfielder Manchester City have got left is Matheus Nunes. Now, we were linked with him from a Manchester United point of view. We were also linked with Matheus Nunes. Pep Guardiola ended up having to go for Matheus Nunes from Wolves because Manchester City couldn't get hold of Lucas Paqueta from West Ham because he got banned from football because of this massive betting scandal over so many years since he's been a West Ham player. Manchester City wanted Paqueta. Man City couldn't get Paqueta because of this betting scandal, potentially banning him for the rest of his footballing career altogether. His football career still looks over because of this betting scandal that is currently still under investigation by the authorities. Man City were desperate. Man City got desperate because they didn't know who else to get. They didn't know who else to bring in. Man City panicked with that signing. So in my view, from a rival fan point of view, I don't think Matheus Nunes absolutely lights up the Etihad. I don't think Matheus Nunes is actually that midfield addition that Pep really wanted. Manchester City and Pep wanted better than that. And I think if that betting scandal wouldn't have happened with Paqueta, Man City would have got him quite comfortably and he would have ended up as a Manchester City player. And I think Guardiola would have been absolutely over the moon. And when you lose De Bruyne and Rodri and now Kovacic, you're looking at Matheus Nunes to be one of the main leaders in your midfield to get that midfield at least up to a level of consistency. And again, you look at Matthias Nunes and he's not exactly lighting it up for Man City. He's not exactly that midfielder that I think Pep Guardiola really wants. And I think, again, Man City get an offer for him. I think Manchester City will take it and they will regenerate that midfield a lot more than what they currently have. So Man City at the moment are basically stuck with Gundogan, Matthias Nunes. But again, the bonus, which is a negative from Man United point of view, De Bruyne is still a world-class player on his day. He's going to be one of those key players for this Manchester derby because his creativity and his goals and the set pieces, his free kicks, his corners. Kevin De Bruyne is that complete centre attacking midfield that Manchester United really could have done with. We don't really have that number one star to dominate the centre attacking midfield position at Manchester United. De Bruyne has been back from injury in the last few games, but again, he is still very in and out this team for Manchester City. And again, they are nurturing him back in because I think if De Bruyne picks up another injury, Man City are back at crisis point with their midfield again. And I think Manchester City, from a rival fan point of view again, will have to spend heavily in January because I think Pep knows the job and the rebuild that needs at Man City is going to be a big one. I think Man City have not improved at all. I think their midfield looks very weak. I think their back four looks quite fragile now. It's not the consistent back four it used to be. The right back's a problem. I'd say their left back position's a problem. I would even say their right wing's a problem. And I'd even say their left wing's a problem. And even another problem that Man City might face, and it's a real possibility, if the form of Man City gets worse and they don't win anything this season and City get knocked out of Europe, they don't win the FA Cup, they can't win the Carabao Cup because they got knocked out of that again, embarrassingly, by bloody Tottenham. If they don't win the league and they don't get top four, Manchester City are in big trouble under Pep because a lot of those players are going to look at this situation and realise we won the treble 2 seasons ago. Last season, we couldn't defend the Champions League because we got knocked out by Real Madrid on penalties. We couldn't defend the FA Cup because from a Man United point of view, we dominated them in that final and we deserved to win hands down. We battered Man City in that FA Cup final, which no one expected, including myself. And I'm still quite thrilled that we won back-to-back trophies under Eric Ten Hag when he was our manager. But you also couldn't defend. Well, you didn't defend the FA Cup. You didn't defend Champions League. All Man City came out with last season was the Premier League. And I think those Man City players expected a lot from last season. And I think where it went wrong for Man City, I thought, like, in my view, I probably think a lot of those players thought, well, we're going to walk the Premier League again. We're going to walk the FA Cup. And we're going to try and win the FA Cup back. No, we'll win the FA Cup again and we'll win the Champions League. I think that was Man City's agenda last season, that they were going to be too good for everybody again. They expected to walk the season. It was going to be pointless for everyone turning up against them. And I think with the charge that are going to come Man City's way, I think, in my view, and I've got a lot of respect for Manchester City. They have been the best team in England for the last 4 years in a row. They won their champions of Europe. They've won an FA Cup, but they didn't defend it last season, like the Champions League also. And I am friends with a Man City fan. His name's John Evans. Massive shout out to him. He's the only Man City fan that I've got any time or any respect for because I respect he supports them. I respect that he loves that club. And he's a great friend to me. So massive shout out to him. But Man City's time is coming to an end. The domination era that Man City were setting, that's going to go. And I think this Manchester derby is a huge one because it's so open between both Manchester sides because Man City have got their own set of problems. Manchester United narrowly just got past Victoria Pilsen last night. And I would still say narrowly, we weren't brilliant and we only just got over the line and got those 3 huge points to keep us in the equation for automatic qualifications for the knockout round of the UEFA Europa League. But if Manchester United can smell the vulnerability and they can smell blood at the Etihad, knowing that Man City are on this horrendous run of 1 win in 10, 21 goals in their last 10, Man City are going to be there for the taking. And Man United need to pounce on that vulnerability. Man United need to go for it. And I think Manchester United can take a lot of advantages and a lot of positivity from Man City's decline. Because if the form continues for Man City and they play badly on Sunday, then questions are going to be asked, what is going on? I think with the injuries, it's not helping. I think with what's happening with Kyle Walker at the moment on social media, that's affecting his game. All of a sudden, Ederson is now massively out that team more than what he's in. And the only game he's featured in Man City's last two was against Juventus in the Champions League, and they lost 2-0 away in Turin in Italy. So there's a lot of problems at Manchester City that are not being disclosed. Portas just said if they're not careful, they will get relegated from the Champions League and the Premier League. And again, that's a massive possibility that will happen. But I think that's another story for another day about when Man City do get charged and what the punishment's going to be. My verdict is that they won't get relegated. They will get a massive points deduction. Titles will get taken off them. And they will be banned from European football. And they will be banned from spending any money in the next 3 to 4 transfer windows. And they'll have to stick with what they've got. And Pep might look at that and think to yourself, do you know what? If that punishment does happen, Pep Guardiola will not be able to rebuild that Man City team. And I've got no sympathy for him. Man City have got away with this cheating for so many long. But it's not just Man City that are cheating. It's other Premier League clubs that are getting so close to the PSR bullshit and they're being able to spend money and they're getting away with it because the Premier League is letting them. I don't think the Premier League are doing anywhere near enough to stop these types of cheating clubs getting away with their brawl breaks and they're letting them carry on with it. And this is why the domination, I think, has stopped at Man City, because I think there's already been a verdict and I think the outcome is it's going to be a bad one. And I think the Manchester City players know that. I think Pep knows that. And I think even the fans and supporters of Man City are fearing the worst, because I don't think how any of them are going to cope. I think Man City are in big, big trouble. And I think Man United, the pressure's going to be off them at the weekend. I can't see Manchester City being a threat. But again, those Man City players are going to be angry. They're going to be hungry. They are going to be wanting to turn this shit around, because Pep Guardiola expects perfection. We know what Pep's like. He's done it at Bayern Munich. He's done it at Barcelona. And he's done it, of course, with Manchester City. And again, like he's also come out and said, Manchester City is going to be his last club that he ever manages. I seriously doubt that. I think Pep is trying to save face. I think he's trying to basically say, well, I could end up getting sacked anyway if I don't turn this around. I'm predicting a relegation for Premier League because they now have 130 charges. I mean, yeah, the charges have gone up to 130, but again, it's another story for another day when that punishment does come through for Manchester City. I think Pep Guardiola is trying to save face. I think he knows Man City are on the decline, and I think he knows Man City are in big trouble. And again, the pressure is on Man City to deliver. Those Man City players, like I said, are going to be angry, they're going to be hungry, and they're going to want to turn this around. And the vulnerability is still very, very much live at Manchester United, with a lot of players, especially with the reports yesterday that there's a certain player in this team that has been leaking. The team news has been leaking the lineup, has been leaking the options from the bench, and also leaking what the team's going to be for the game. And again, I'm worried about who that leak is. And a lot of fingers were pointed at Garnacho yesterday. And if that is true, that Garnacho and his brother have been leaking private information regarding Manchester United Football Club, from their lineup to their team selection to the options off the bench and the way Manchester United are going to set up, then you've got to remove that problem. Obviously, I will back Garnacho because he is one of my favourite players. And I was gutted that he didn't start against Victoria Pilsen yesterday. But if that problem is true and it has been him and his brother leaking the information out, and other people are finding out way before everybody else is, then that problem has got to be removed from the football club. And I think Ruben Amorim is going to want less distractions because he knows there's a huge possibility that Manchester United could wipe the floor with Man City at the weekend and absolutely steamroll them. Because Man City, you don't expect 21 goals to be conceded in their last 10. That is beyond shocking. That Man City's defensive problems have got to that point. I don't know why Man City have got. I don't know why Man City are playing the way they are. I don't know why they are conceding goals left, right, and centre. But something's not been right at Man City for a very, very long time. And I think, the players are probably fed up with it. I think there's certain players whose futures lie away from Man City. And I think Ruben Amorim has got a huge possibility to put a huge, huge marker down that the domination, like Eric, and you have to go back to what Eric Ten Hag said, the domination and the eras of Liverpool and Man City will come to an end. And you have to applaud Eric Ten Hag for giving that quote, because he was right. Season after Man City win the league, Man City's domination has started to go down the pan. Liverpool look like a completely reorganised team. They look so much better under Arne Slot. Obviously, he's still got a massive chance to prove himself. You look at their record in the Champions League, 6 wins from 6. They're miles clear at the top of the Premier League, and they are playing some fucking good football. And again, maybe that's probably going to bite Eric, because I don't think a lot of people, including myself, was quite skeptical of, from a rival fan point of view, you're going from Klopp to Arne Slot, the Feyenoord manager. It's a big ask, and it could have ended up like Ten Hag, where 2-3 seasons down the line, Arne Slot will be shown the door by Liverpool and he'll be kicked out of the club and they'll sack him. But again, you look at the squad Arne Slot's inherited: Salah, Darwin Núñez, Jota, Diaz. I mean, the quality in that Liverpool team is recognisable straight away. And Man City have been dominating with the same number of players that they've kept over so many long period of time. And the players have probably got used to the football and used to the amount of changes. And again, I think dropping certain players at that Man City team has probably come to fruition for Pep, because he knows the rebuild is going to be massive for Man City. And I expect them to spend big money in January. And I massively expect, from a rival fan point of view, from myself, that Man City will have a busy summer, because even Pep's come out and said Man City need a major rebuild. They need to buy better players. A lot of these Man City players are not going to be here next season. And again, from a Man City fan point of view, I've got no sympathy, because I want to win this weekend. I think Ruben Amorim is going to want to fully focus on the positives, that Man City's vulnerability is quite clear now. And Man City had overtaken, and Man United have got to take this opportunity, because Man City are on the decline. Man City are falling apart. They're having a very, very bad season. And I think if it carries on, Man City are going to many clubs are going to end up leapfrogging Man City, which a lot of clubs probably didn't expect. You look at that top 10, Brentford are in there, Bournemouth are in there, Brighton are in there, Fulham are in there, Forest are in there. That's 5 of the top 10 that could all finish above Man City this season. I'm not expecting them to. I still think Man City will turn this shit around. And again, Man City are going to be hungry to want to point these defensive problems and defensive issues around. They are going to want to beat Manchester United. They're going to want to beat us. We know what's coming. We know their threats. We know their quality. But you've got to target their goalkeeper, because all of a sudden Ederson's now out of question. Ortega seems to be now the number one choice. Okay. Ortega seems to be now the number one option for Manchester City in goal. That's a big surprise. No one expected Ortega to overtake Ederson. No one expected that. I remember when they started, did they start Ortega in the FA Cup final last season? That was a shock. Like, they started their backup goalkeeper in goal for the FA Cup final. I think maybe problems went wrong then. Maybe last season's problems have come to fruition this season, that the players were very fucked off that they didn't defend their treble. They wanted to win the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League again, and they wanted to do it back to back. And I think once one went away, the other went away. The only thing they were defending was the league. I expected them to win everything last season. I hold my hands up to that, and they didn't. Thank God. But Ortega as the Man City #1 goalkeeper is a shocking one. You need better than Ortega. I don't think Ortega's even good to start for a mid-table Premier League club. I don't rate him as a goalkeeper. I don't think he's very good for Man City. And I think with him now being the #1 choice for the league matches and Ederson's now for the European games, it'll be interesting to see what Pep goes with. But you've also got to look at the problems that Kyle Walker has had in the last 48 hours as a Man City player. The hate and the crap that he's getting on social media is disgusting, it's vile, and it's wrong, and I call it out. It's not acceptable, it's not fair, and it's a disgrace. And I've got sympathy for Kyle Walker, but Kyle Walker's game is fading away. He was massively inconsistent for England. I don't think he even should be in connection for an England recall. I think his form has been showing this for the last 2 seasons. Kyle Walker is not the right back Man City had when he was at Spurs. That Kyle Walker's gone. That Kyle Walker ain't coming back. And from a Man United point of view, you target that vulnerability. Because if Kyle Walker's game at the moment is being affected by personal problems off the pitch because of the crap he's getting on social media, Man United have got to take that as an advantage because he knows he's been questioned, he's getting a lot of this crap, and he's not going to be feeling great about himself. And you've got to target that vulnerability when you come up against a quality player like Kyle Walker has done. He has won the trophies. He's won the medals. Kyle Walker is going to go down in history as one of the best right backs the Premier League's produced because he's got the medals, 4 Premier League titles, a Champions League, an FA Cup. I mean, you can't really complain at that. That's quality in a nutshell for Manchester City. You then look at their attack. Again, you look at that front three and you think to yourself, look at the options Man City have got. Doku, Grealish, Savinho, Haaland, and Foden. A lot of those players also have been massively in and out of Man City. And again, their front three from last season has been completely ripped up. Foden's massively in and out of Man City now. Grealish is not favoured now over Doku, which I think is a shocking one. And the only recognisable threat that Man City have got is Erling Haaland. His records that he's beat and he's smashed, it speaks for themselves. Soon as Man City got hold of Haaland, I knew the domination was coming because I knew the quality that Erling Haaland was bringing to Man City in a nutshell. Goals, goals, goals. Records are going to get beat. Records are going to get smashed. And Erling Haaland has done that. Erling Haaland is a quality world-class striker. One of the best European elite strikers in world football, in my opinion. But again, hasn't had the season he had when he started at Man City in season 1. I think the last time we played Man City away in the Manchester derby, I don't know what happened at the ETIHAD last season. I can't exactly remember the scoreline, but scoreline before the season 1, we ended up losing 6-3 under Eric Ten Hag in season 1. And some of our records that we suffered that season were a bloody disgrace. We got ripped apart by Liverpool at Anfield, and we got ripped apart by Man City at the Etihad. Manchester United were absolutely torn apart. From back to front, Man United were massively outclassed by both European and English sides. And Man United deserved those defeats in the manner that we suffered from them. So I think Erling Haaland's going to look at this and he's going to look at that front three. He's wondering why Grealish is being not favoured over Doku, which I think is a joke. I don't understand why Grealish doesn't start for England. I think Grealish, in my view, is one of England's best left wing options. And again, is massively in and out of that England team. And it's happened under Man City because I think it's down to the amount of game time he's probably not getting. I don't understand why Doku starts over Grealish. I don't see how that's an upgrade. Jeremy Doku was meant to be an upgrade for Man City. And again, maybe that wasn't an option that Pep wanted. And he's had to be given Doku because the options he probably wanted have ended up at other clubs. And the option he's had to take is Doku because it's been an emergency because Man City haven't really got another creative left-wing player except for Grealish. When Grealish went to Man City for that record fee, you expect him to be starting week in, week out for Man City. all of a sudden Doku's arrived on the scene, and Doku's massively in the team more than he's out. And I don't understand that. From a rival fan, that's quite shocking because Grealish is Man City's best left winger, in my view. And the same problem is with Phil Foden. When you put Phil Foden on the right wing for Man City, he's absolutely phenomenal. Quality, produces goals, produces assists. He's got speed, he's got the tempo, he's got the pace. He would frighten any European back four in world football. Foden is one of Man City's best right wing players, and he produces the goods for Man City on so many occasions. And the first defeat at the Etihad we suffered under Ten Hag was that 6-3 defeat, where both Erling Haaland and Phil Foden both scored hat-tricks, which has never, ever happened in a Manchester derby ever for Manchester United Football Club. That was an embarrassing day for us, and we need to be putting these wrongs right now. We've got a huge opportunity to go to the Etihad and get an unlikely 3 points, which would boost Ruben Amorim a lot at the moment, especially where we are lying 13th in the Premier League with 19 points. Our lowest Premier League count in decades, our worst league position since 1988. That's got to be turned around. And I think with the chat about Foden, when you then put him in an England shirt, he's absolutely shite. And I don't know if it's down to the tactics and the approach and the managers that fucking Foden's had to suffer under England with Southgate and Lee Carsley. But even when Foden because Foden's picked up a few injuries this season as well, and he hasn't kicked a ball yet for England this year because of the injuries he's had since the Euros. He's not played any of our UEFA Nations League games because he's been injured. And also, he didn't kick a ball under Carsley, and I'm quite glad he didn't because Foden is one of England's better players. But when you put him in an England shirt, he doesn't perform the way he performs in the Man City shirt. That is because he's being managed by a bloody magician. He's being managed by, for me, the best coach in European football is Pep Guardiola by a bloody mile. No one can compete with that. And then Savinho arrives on the scene. Now, in my view, I absolutely love Savinho. Like, the quality he brings into Man City is phenomenal. Like, the quality is instant. And he gets you that creativity. He can do things that Foden can't. And I think for me, you're looking at Man City now, they favour a lot more of an attacking approach instead of a more safe approach where Phil Foden used to build up the play from getting the ball to the right on the right wing for him then producing the ball back to the midfield. You saw a lot of that last season where they were relying a lot on Phil Foden to have the ball a lot to try and get into the opposition penalty area and create the goals and create the opportunities that Man City's front three needed in all their games last season. And now Savinho's turned up, and Savinho is very much in the team than out of it. And he's replaced Phil Foden. And you look at that Man City front three, does it scare you? No. That front three doesn't scare me. It scares me when you've got Foden, Grealish and Haaland all starting in together. Because I think for me, that's Man City's best front three options. I wouldn't start Savinho and Doku with Haaland because it doesn't work. It does not work. Man City need better. I'm not saying Savinho is a bad player, but for me, Foden's still better. I think Grealish is still better than Doku. So Man City are in a lot of trouble because a lot of these players have had injuries. And again, maybe you started using excuses, Guardiola. And Paul Tanner said, I just hope we beat the Chiefs because they deserve to get beat to make Manchester red. It's going to be an interesting Manchester derby, and I'm going to keep saying it's the most open Manchester derby we've had in years. It's the most open Manchester derby we've had in so many seasons because it's so wide open. The outcome could be so unpredictable. This could go a way that a lot of people aren't thinking it's going to go. I'm predicting Man United are going to go there and win because I feel at the moment, the way Man City are compared to Manchester United, at the moment, it's night and day based on league form. It's based on the form of our defensive. It's the points we've picked up compared to Man City. They've only won one game in the last 10. Like, that is shocking. You never expected that to happen for Man City and Pep this season. Not a blimmin' chance. And Manchester United, well, we've only suffered really 4 wins, 2 defeats and 2 draws. It's not exactly going bad, but it could be a lot better. If we could have got a result at the Emirates, we could have beat Forest at home, and obviously we beat Pilsen yesterday. And yes, I think the fatigue's going to be there because we've had to travel away from home in Europe last night, and there is going to be that fatigue. But the team will have to be freshened, and I think Ruben Amorim will have to make a lot of changes from that team. I think a lot of players' futures were lined up as your careers are over. I can't see Marcus Rashford playing the way with the lack of acknowledgement from both the manager and the player when he got subbed off yesterday. Xerxes was found out by the manager quite quickly. Casemiro, I think his career's coming to an end. I think Bruno Fernandes's head is on the line as well. Because I didn't see a captain yesterday. I didn't see a leader. And the only decent bit of play Fernandes produced all game was the pass to put Højlund in one-on-one to get the winning goal. And that for me was about it. I didn't see much from Manchester United yesterday convince me that we could even go to the Etihad and win. But Manchester United, the pressure is going to be off. The pressure is going to be very much on Man City. And Man City, they like to deal with that pressure in their own way. They do like, people to go for them. They do like people to criticise, and they then take that criticism as a positive because they want to then prove everybody wrong that Man City are still one of the best teams in the land. But I think if the players are fed up, Pep looks out of ideas. Man City are on the verge of being embarrassed this season because if they finish outside the top four and they don't get European football and they don't win anything, a lot of those Man City players are going to look at the situation and think to themselves, we need to get out of this. Because if we get done and we get punished badly and we're not in Europe, we get relegated, which I don't think is going to happen, and we get a transfer ban and we get a massive points deduction, where do our futures lie? Where Man City going to be able to achieve the comeback? Because if you relegate Man City, for me, you've got to relegate them at least down past the National League or more, in my view. That should be a fair enough punishment. That won't happen because A, they bring way too much money to the Premier League. B, it's the same for European football, for the Champions League, the Europa League, or even the Europa Conference League, because you never know what competition Man City will end up in if the punishment happens. And I think C, the problem is if you relegate them and they keep all these players, which could be a possibility, but in other leagues, you are restricted by wage budget, you are restricted by money, and you are restricted on what you can and cannot have. In the Championship, League One and League Two, you are restricted by financials of the wage, but it's got to be in a certain restriction of this. And if you relegate Man City to at least the National League North, the problem is if they keep Pep and they keep these players, the problem you've got, they will end up blasting through the National League very quickly. From the North to the Premier, they'll win every game. They won't lose. They'll get through League Two easy. They'll cruise League One. The only league I would find it difficult for Man City to try and get anything out of would be, for me, the Championship is the toughest league in the world. And obviously, you're playing 46 games. You're playing 8 games more than what you did in the Prem. And you've got a lot more competitions to compete in because you're going to have the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. And if Man City are even anywhere near a European spot or even a European competition, which I don't think will happen, because if Man City do get relegated, which again, I don't think will happen because it brings too much money for everybody involved in football, because this is the talking point. This is about money at the end of the day. They will want Man City somewhere near the top of the Prem. They'll want Man City somewhere near the Premier League at least to come back up to it, because the problem is if they do relegate them, the Premier League could end up folding. The Premier League could end up being screwed if Man City aren't in it. And this is why clubs like Everton are in the same bracket as Man City. And you've got to put Chelsea in there as well. These 3 clubs should have been punished a long time ago, and it's been left undone. And all 3 of them have been allowed to get on with it and allowed to go on with their cheating scandals. I don't think it's fair. But at the end of the day, this is football. There are bigger things than, football in life. I respect my friends who are Man City fans. I respect them a lot. They mean a lot to me. They're all legends. I respect everybody. But the opportunity to beat them this weekend to rub even more salt into Man City's wounds with the current form Man City on and with the amount of goals that Man City are leaking more than a sieve, Man City are there to be beat. And I think Man United can get something. They will smell blood. They will smell that vulnerability. They will know what's going on at Man City. They'll look at their league form. They'll look at the goals they conceded. And Man United will try and pounce and prance on every vulnerability option or phase of play that comes up in the Manchester derby on Sunday evening at the Etihad. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Manchester United win. Man under huge pressure to turn this shit around. Man City are under a lot of crap. They're under a massive investigation for 130 charges. They've gone 1 win in their last 10. They've conceded 21 goals in their last 10. Pep Guardiola is under huge pressure to turn this around, but he's signed a 2-year contract. But he's also very, very tired. He's worn out. That Man City have decided to stay with Pep instead of trying to move Pep on to try and bring someone else in to take the current reins at Man City. Because I think Man City fear there's no one else better than Pep to take over. And Man City don't have options. So Man City are stuck with Pep because no one else will want this job, especially if Man City do and quite rightly justify to be punished. They're there for the vulnerability. They're there for the take it. And that's why I'm going to go for a 2-0 Manchester United win. So I hope you've enjoyed this live Premier League look ahead. Please hit the like button, hit the share button. Please hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel, which is United Red Devils 20 on YouTube. Share the video, hit the tweet button, hit the retweet button. Remember to always remember, put that notification bell on at all times so you receive dedicated and upcoming brand new content of brand new videos, brand new shorts, and brand new live streams that we've got planned for these last 3 remaining weeks in 2024. We've got plenty of brand ideas, plenty of brand new games, and plenty of brand new stuff that we're going to be doing on the channel to end this year on a massive, massive high. And then obviously, please join me for the full-time reaction from the Etihad once that full-time whistle goes for the 2024 Manchester derby between Manchester City and Manchester United at the Etihad on Sunday evening on match day 15 of the 24-25 Premier League season. Can Manchester United get an unlikely win, or will Man City do what they did in season 1 with another 6-3 win? Let's wait and see. I hope you enjoy this evening. Stay safe, be nice, be kind to each other. You're all legends, you're all legendary. I'll see you guys all on the next one.